Hello, everyone. Welcome to Voices and Views. This is Mark Matheson, and I have a special guest in the studio today, Saif Alsaegh. Welcome, Saif.
Oh, thank you.
All right, now you are an Iraqi citizen,
I am, yeah.
and you're here going to college, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so how long have you been here?
I'm a junior now at the school, so this is my third year. I've been here before a few times, like during short summer programs, but this is like my third year actual living in the U.S. So
Okay, and you have made, and I should add that you're at UGF.
yeah, I'm a citizen.
So, but you've made quite a reputation with your poetry.
I guess I hope so. Yeah, I came here as a student, but poetry was always my passion, always been my passion, and I started writing, and then through weird events and luck, I think I started doing shows in town, and then I started doing shows in other states such as New York and California and Washington and Oklahoma, and yeah, it's been going pretty good.
Well, I'd say you're just a pretty young guy, but you've been around the world a time or two. How old are you?
I'm 22.
22.
Yes.
Well, you've packed a lot into that life so far. Now, you've got a collection of your poetry coming out. What is the title of that, and when will it be coming?
The title of it will be called Iraqi Headaches,
Mm-hmm.
and it will be coming in hopefully in December,
All right.
mid-December.
So you have put it out to the public to start pre-ordering it.
Yeah, we 2 days ago we started an Indiegogo page where you can go pre-order the book, and if you like the project as a whole, like poetry from an Iraqi poet in English about all kinds of stuff, with a section of translated work from Arabic to English. So we will have it in both. So if you like the project, you can not only pre-order the book, you can donate more to the book. You can donate from $1 to $200 or even more. So, and in the last 2 days, we set the page 2 days ago, and so far we had more than 30% of our goal already collected. So it's been going well. So I really encourage people to support it and pre-order the book and share it. Share it is a big thing.
All right. So where did they go to find that again?
They would go to Indiegogo.com and then type in Iraqi Headaches by Saif Alsaegh, Saifalsaegh, or they can go directly to my blog where we have all the information too. And my blog is saifalsaegh dot blogspot.com.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you read us a piece of your poetry that will be in that book?
Yeah. This one, I wrote this one in New York in 2012, and it was called Under the Sun. It goes like this: Engrave your fingertips with tattoos of the smell of war. Don't seek triumph. You're the one whose children will die with the disease of breathing. Protest, so nothing will change. You're the one whose prayers will be heard by the routine of the city. Gaze at the dark billboards. Remember your beloved mother, the corner of the street. You're the one whose heart is colder than the stories of the Bible. Write your melancholic novel. Talk about the absurdity of the kingdom's future, about the political ideology of the foxes and the human harmony. You're the one whose philosophy is like the snoring of God. Read your daily newspaper. Burn the oddity of life with the malady of tobacco. You're the one who will end smiling under the sun.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Now let's go on a little bit about your background. You know, if I've made the mistake, and I'm sure a lot of people have, of stereotyping. You're from Iraq. You're Arabic. You have a beard, but you're not Islam. Tell us your religion.
Well, I was born and raised Catholic, as not a lot of people know this, but in Iraq we have a minority of Christians. They're around 2%,
Mm-hmm.
almost a million people out of 35 million, and I'm from that minority. So I was born and raised Catholic. I was evangelical for a few years by my choice, and now I'm not. I don't consider myself religious, but yeah, I was never. I mean, when I'm here, I'm always associated with Islam by mistake,
Mm-hmm.
but I try to correct people, and I tell them not all Arabs are Muslims. We even have Jewish Arabs. We have not Hindu, but you can find basically any kind of religion in the Arab world, because religion, I think, is a choice. Sometimes you're born with it, but you can change it. And but in my case, I was born and raised Catholic.
All right. So it's very important for us all to not assume who somebody is because of the spelling of their name, the color of their skin, or anything else. In my studies, I've discovered that in every one of the Islamic nations, there is a minority of Christians that have been there millennia.
Exactly, and I mean, Christians are everywhere. Basically, in every country, there is a percentage of Christians, and Christianity in the East is very interesting because it's much different than the Christianity in the West. Because it's older than the Christianity in Europe or the U.S. Um, Basically, the East is where I mean, Christ came from. Christ came from Israel, which is not really far from Iraq. It's 2 hours by airplane, so it's not that far. So Christianity spreaded to Iraq, to Syria, to a lot of these places, to Lebanon, quickly. So the Christianity in the Middle East and Christianity in the east of the eastern part of the world is older and is much. I know. I think it's very fascinating.
Yeah, oh, I find it too, and perhaps a reminder to our listeners that modern day Iraq is the biblical Babylon. So
Yeah, exactly.
it,
And very close to Babylon, like few miles away, they found a lot of old churches that are now buried under the ground. So all these areas were parts of these areas. Let's say they were Christian. They were Christian, and it was full of Christian people.
okay. So what was it like growing up as a minority religion? Because when you were a child, Saddam Hussein was president, and he was not, in my opinion, the most tolerant of people.
He was not, but surprisingly enough, he liked Christians. So it was pretty nice growing up Christian in Baghdad. This is where I was born and raised. It's he didn't like some parts of like the Muslim religion, but he really liked Christians because he always saw Christians are this kind of sophisticated sector of the community.
Mm-hmm.
And Christians in the Middle East and in Iraq are known for their open-minded ideas, and they're mostly on the liberal side, not politically but socially. So we're more westernized in a way or another. Even the way we dress is a little bit different. The way we think is a little bit different. So, and he liked that. So growing up as a Christian during his regime was not the worst thing that you can have. The regime was not good. I mean, as a president, he was the worst, I think. But growing up Christian was not that bad.
So tell us what it was like growing up, experiencing the overturn of Saddam and the U.S. and coalition invasion. How did that affect your family and you?
Well, when the whole thing I mean, I was 13 when the 2003 war happened, and so I was young, but I remember all parts of it. And we lived in Baghdad, and Baghdad is a big city. It's about the size of New York City, about the size of 8 to 9 million people, and to live in a big city, and this is the center of everything. This is
Mhm.
the center of the government, of politics. So when an invasion is happening, um, Baghdad will be the first target, and it was, and it was a lot. It was scary because you don't know if you will sleep at that night, and we didn't sleep 8 hours. We slept like 5 hours because with so much stress, you can't sleep more than 5 6 hours. So with these hours that we slept, you never knew that if you're gonna wake up or not, or your family would wake up or not. And having missiles, just being thrown all over your house, our houses, and people was just as scary. Like at night, we used to see the sky of Baghdad just on fire. It's basically all kind of colors that you would not see on a regular day, all the green and yellow and red, and with all the bombs. It was just a very I think sad but scary experience that a person goes through. I remember our house was very close to the highway, um, and if you go on the highway, it's like 10 minutes to one of the biggest army camps in Baghdad. So a lot of the U.S. bombed a lot of parts of that camp because a lot of the army was there, and it was technically very close to our house. And then we used to hear like the missiles like going off literally every minute. Like we didn't have like 5 minutes without hearing a bomb or a missile, um, and that was a terrifying experience. Um, After like 10 days of the war, we when we left our house because we thought it's really dangerous, and we left our house and we went to one of our friends' house that lived in a safer neighborhood and a more kind of secured and protected neighborhood. It was not close to any like military camps or any significant governmental institution. So we stayed there for the rest of the war. But it was such an interesting and surprising thing when we saw American troops on the grounds of Baghdad because we never thought that this regime will go away. We like Saddam Hussein was like a god, like not a god that we liked, but he was like a god in that country. And seeing him just gone and seeing American troops on the ground was very surprising. And I remember that night I saw my first American, and he was a soldier, and we were like, we didn't celebrate after the war ended, but we just wanted to relax. So I remember my dad, my brother, my like my dad's friend, my father's friends, they sat just like on the patio and they were drinking whiskey. And American soldiers just came by to check on the whole thing in the neighborhood and the safety in the neighborhood. And then my dad gave them some whiskey, and that was like the first connection between us and Americans. And then after the war, seeing American troops on the ground was a regular thing because they were there on a daily basis.
All right. When did you learn to speak English? Is
I
that
started,
in school or?
yeah. I mean, English is like Spanish here, basically. So our schools teach English since we're like around third grade, fourth grade,
Mm-hmm.
and you grow up with some English. It's not like they don't teach it in the best way. They teach it like how they teach Spanish here. Like everyone knows some Spanish here, but they're not. They can't like make up a conversation or talk for hours. But for with my education and with the help, my brother spoke good English, and he always used to listen to metal music and rock and roll. So he always got this kind of American English. So that was like, for me, that was a motivation to learn more English because I like this kind of music. And when I was 17, I came here during an exchange program for the summer. And when you travel when you're young, you pick up the accent quickly, and you just we had like American friends that we spoke English with them all the time, and that was a big part of me getting the accent better and getting more English. And then I studied in Damascus, believe it or not, when it was safe, not now. But when it was safe, I went to Damascus and I studied 1 year. I studied academic English for 1 year. So I learned how to write like college essays and read a lot of books and do all of that. So this is kind of my journey. And then I came here, and in Montana, there's not a lot of diversity. You're basically in a college. I mean, my freshman year, I was the only Arab. So if I don't speak with my family for 5 days, I won't speak Arabic. So I had to speak English. And through that time, your English gets better.
Mm. Now, your family eventually moved from Baghdad. When did they do that, and where are they now?
They left Baghdad for many reasons. First, it was not safe, and it still is. It's not a safe city to live in, even though it's a nice city. I like it. I miss it, but it's not the best one. They went to the northern Iraq, to Erbil. And Erbil is like the capital of the semi federalist region. It's the Kurdish region. So it's not,
Mm-hmm.
the majority there are not Arabs, they are Kurds, and
Mm-hmm.
they speak Kurdish, they don't speak Arabic. So it's like leaving to another country, but within the same borders. You don't need a passport, but you need an ID to get there. And Arabic is like the second language. But my family left there because it's a very safe region in Iraq. It's one of the safest in the Middle East in general. And it's very developed, it's very modern, and the economy there is doing a little bit better than Baghdad. So my family left for these reasons, and they left in 2010. It's the same year when I left to Syria. So I didn't live in Erbil. I visited Erbil a few times, but I've never lived in Erbil. But my family now lives there, and they are doing well, I think.
All right. So how big is your family?
I have a brother, two sisters, mom and dad, and my beloved aunt. She lives with us. I mean, she's been living with us the whole time, so she's part of the family.
Mm-hmm.
So we were around seven, but now everyone is married and everyone is scattered around. I have a sister lives in Nashville, and the rest are still they still live in the same city in Erbil. But my mom is coming here in a few months to visit, so we're kind of a. I think we have an international. We're like an international background family. We have a lot of, and like a lot of my relatives are. They live in like all kinds of countries, like from Germany to Netherlands to London to the U.S. to Canada. So I think the family is pretty international.
So in your travels, along with learning English a little better and geography, how does that shape your worldview, your political views, or anything else? What has come out of that?
Um, it, I think traveling can change everything in your mind. I mean, it can mess you up, literally. It's funny because I started traveling when I was 17. Before that, I never thought I would travel. My dad was a very nationalist person. He loved Iraq. He never wanted to leave Iraq, even for a few months. He loved the country so much that he always wanted to stay there. And it's interesting because when I was a kid, I thought I would never travel away, never travel to other countries because of my dad. And then I was 17, so I could make the decision. So I started traveling. Even my dad didn't really like it, but started traveling, and I went to from the U.S. to Turkey to Syria to and Iraq, seeing different people, engaging in different programs where you have people from different backgrounds that are Christian, that are Muslim, that are non-religious, they are atheists, they have all kinds of ideas, and there are different colors and different families and structures and traditions. It makes you an open-minded person. You're willing to accept people that are not similar to you. And I'm lucky enough, after all these programs that I've done, and through my poetry and through my writings, I was engaged with people that I thought I would never know people like this. For example, um, from Iraq, living in Iraq, we don't have good relations with Israel. So we don't know a lot of Jews. We don't have any Jewish people in Iraq. We have like, I think, zero people living, like Jewish people living in Iraq right now. And it's interesting because when you live in Iraq, you think you would never meet a Jewish person. And then through my poetry, I met and I worked for on different programs with the one of the first eight female rabbis in the Jewish history. She's an amazing person, and she liked my poetry. So through her and through her organizations, I did readings in New York and San Francisco. And just thinking about this experience fascinates me because I never thought that not even meet a person, but like work with a person that is Jewish, and not even like regular Jewish, like that is a rabbi and the person that actually knows the religion and practice the
Okay.
religion.
What is her name?
Her name is Lynn Gottlieb. She's an author. She's an activist, and I was just with her less than 2 months ago in San Francisco, working on peace and activism and poetry. I did a few readings there in the Bay Area. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, it'd be a good person to look up and get to know a little better.
Yeah, we're trying to get her to Montana. Let's see how
Are
that
you?
goes. Yeah, we're trying to get her for a reading in Montana, but we have to see all the traveling things and the publishing stuff that has to go with it.
Well, that would be pretty cool. Once again, we're talking to Saif Alsaegh. He is a student at UGF and is promoting a collection of his poetry, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. So tell us, growing up, what kind of music did you listen to?
It's I think it's all my brother's fault basically because he listened to all kinds of music, but I mean between Iraqi music, regular kind of pop Iraqi music, and rock and roll, that was like the two that I listened to when I was young. So from Iraqi music, I always like the older, not like the modern music because I think the modern music is just not good. I like the 70s, like kind of it was like the hippie kind of phase of Iraq. It's like it was like the hippie kind in any I think in any country. The 70s was one of 60s and 70s were the best eras in this century or the last century. So
I think that's the same here in America.
yeah, and
My own opinion.
yeah, I just think music from the 60s and 70s in all countries was just better, and so I listened to a lot of old style music, the 70s kind of Iraqi music, and this kind of music had a lot of what they call mawal, which is kind of like poetry, but it's like it has some musicality in it, and they sing the poetry. So they don't read their poetry; they sing it, and it's always sad. It's not like a happy thing. It's always sad. And if you grow up in Iraq, you have a lot of sad music because it's just that's how people express their fear and their sadness. I think or Iraqis in general, have more pressure on them than a lot of other countries because they don't only have to worry about everyday issues like food and money and kids and families and all of that. They have to worry about wars and not dying, and I think that's a big pressure. So they express their sadness through poetry and music. So we have a lot of sad music that I always enjoyed, and the really good music was from the 70s. And on the other hand, I have this background of Western music that was represented in rock and roll and people like John Lennon, The Doors, Neil Young, all of those people that I really liked, and even some metal like Metallica and bands like that, Nirvana, for example. So I grew up with music like that, and in the last 3 years, I've been just kind of exploring other kinds of music. So I'm listening to a lot of Greek music, Turkish music, Sufi music, and I'm not sure if a lot of people know what Sufi music is, but it's like a liberal sector of Islam where they sing a lot of their prayers, and it's very, very spiritual and very interesting. So I listen to a lot of that. I listen to rock and roll still. I listen to grunge music. It's just, I think music, when you start traveling, you meet people, and everyone listens to some kind of music that you're not familiar with. And through my travelings, and my brother, both of them just helped me to explore different kind of music. So now I listen to basically everything. But before that, I always listened to the like 70s from the western side and the eastern side.
It's kind of interesting. We'll have to see if we can't find some of that music and play it as a introduction.
Yeah, I can send you guys some music from Iraq.
That'd be pretty cool. Now, you were telling me that growing up, they had a pretty good middle class in Iraq, and that's not the case anymore. Your family was considered middle class, correct?
Yeah, we were a middle class family.
So the war, how did that affect the middle class?
I think in every healthy economy, the middle class has to be the majority. I mean, in a perfect world, the like rich people has to be majority, but that doesn't happen. But in a healthy economy, middle class is the majority, and that's good because that means not a lot of people are dying from being hungry, and not a lot of people are holding all the money, and that was the situation in Iraq before the war. But after the war, because of the economy and because of the inflation, and because of a lot of people fled the country, a lot of the educated people, the professionals, left the country because of getting a lot of threatening from terrorist groups. Just the whole dynamic of the society and the community, and eventually the economy changed. Now we have the middle class is getting smaller, the size of the middle class, and then we have the upper class and the lower class are getting bigger. So we have a lot of poor people and we have a lot of rich people, but a lot of those professionals and professors and doctors were middle class, or they're not even, and some of them were not middle class, they were kind of upper middle class, and most of those people left the country. So now we're left with the really rich ones that hold a lot of power, and the really poor ones that couldn't leave because of financial reasons. So that's how it kind of affected,
Hmm.
that's how the war affected the economy in a way.
What about relations with Iran? I mean, that's big in the news right now. You know, the new president, the nuclear threat in some people's minds, Israel and everything. How is the relationship between Iraq and Iran? Is it improved?
I don't think so. With Before the war, we didn't have good relations with Iran for sure because of the 80s war, the one we had in the 80s. But after the war, it is just different because it's based on religious and political biases. So a lot of so Iran now, I mean, when I say Iran, I don't mean the people. I mean the government and the
Right.
politics. And so the Iranian government is trying to influence, and I think it does influence our politics and our government in a huge way. That a lot of our political leaders, when they go for vacations, they go to Iran. Where they go to do conversations with other countries, they go to Iran. So Iran, I think, it's influencing a lot of our government, and I think the majority of the people, not the government, I think the government likes it, but the majority of the people don't like it because I think the wound of the war between Iraq and Iran is not healed yet. So Iran is just um, playing a huge role in our politics, and the people I think are getting really angry
Mm.
about it. So between the government on papers, on television, the governments look good together, but between people, I don't think it looks that good.
Mm. And what about the situation now in Syria? Would you go back there today, or is
No,
that?
I would never go back today. um, as I said, I lived 1 year, almost 1 year in Damascus, in the center of Damascus. I lived in a small apartment, um, I think 15 minutes walk from Bashar al-Assad palace. It was a really nice, kind of upper class Syrian neighborhood, and the city is a beautiful city. Damascus before the war, it was just a really nice city. It had a lot of history and a lot of just different people and just nice people, and I liked it. But with the regime, like when I was there, the regime was basically like Saddam Hussein regime. So you couldn't say anything you want. There was not a lot of freedom of speech, a lot of restrictions. Even Facebook was not, and a lot of like the year I spent there, I think 50% of the time Facebook was not allowed. So people have to like go and like open Facebook in like different ways. So social media was not a popular thing. But now, with the war, a lot of people, like basically people wanted freedom. They wanted freedom of speech. It's just like Iraqis. But in our case, we couldn't do a revolution because the regime was much stronger than the regime in Syria, the Iraqi, the Saddam Hussein regime. But the regime in Syria is not as strong. So a lot of the revolution started, and then the first few months it was amazing because it was peaceful revolutions. Um, they had examples of peace that they wanted these demonstrations to be peaceful, but now they're not. Now it's more of an ethnic war between the Alawi Muslims that are minority that holds the power, the Bashar Assad family, and between the majority that are Sunni Muslims, and between the rebels, between the regime, between a lot of fighters from Al Qaeda. Um, it's a big mess. All the Iraqis that immigrated to Syria when Iraq was not safe and Syria was safe, they all returned back to Iraq or fled to other countries, European countries. And now a lot of Syrians are immigrating from Syria to go to Turkey, to go to Lebanon, to go to northern Iraq. When I went to Iraq to visit my family this summer, and it's surprising and sad because I saw a lot of Syrians. Syrians were just filling the streets. They work the worst jobs that a lot of upper class Iraqis won't do, and it's basically our situation when we went to Syria. And I think it's sad because I really didn't want this to happen to them because they are nice people and they don't deserve war, and I don't think anyone deserves war. So.
No, I don't think so either. But as long as somebody's making money, I think war will continue.
That's what I believe.
So terrible political opinion there, but it seems to always hold true.
Yeah.
So for those Americans that only see Iraq on the TV news, that's not the Iraq you know. What image of your country would you like to present so that the people that are watching the news can get a better outlook on your country? Sell your country, please.
Sell my country. Oh, that can work. I think like the biggest thing that I want them to know is they should think of Iraqis as peaceful people. I mean, first, we're not big on guns like people here, and we don't have constitutional right when it comes to guns. We can't own guns. It's hard to own guns in Iraq legally, and so we're not like people here assume that I'm very familiar with guns because I'm from Iraq. Well, my first time shooting guns was in Montana when I went with my friends to shoot guns, and that was an experience because I've never shot a gun in my life, and people still assume that because I'm from Iraq, I'm very familiar with guns. So I think a lot of people think that Iraqis are violent, and we're not. We're not at all. It's just it's not. I think it's not your fault when you're born in a country, and this country is basically a war zone, and this country has a lot of oil that everyone wants a part of. So I don't think it's our fault. Like what happened to American soldiers or what happened to Iraqi soldiers and people, this is not the people's fault. Basically, I think Iraqis in general, the Iraqi people are trying to separate the government, the American government, or the politics from the people. That's why a lot of Iraqis are immigrating to the U.S. because they don't have this hatred in their hearts. They just want to live a peaceful life, and they think that the people had nothing to do with the war. It was a stupid politics between two stupid governments. This is what I think. Not the government on both sides were stupid, and more than 1 million people from the Iraqi side or from the American side died. And I don't think like no one won. It was not a victory war. No one won the war because when you have people dying, this is not winning. And so this is one of the main images that I want people to know, that Iraq is peaceful and Iraqis are peaceful. And the second thing is we don't ride camels, and we have TV, and we have internet, and we have all of the stupid things that people always asking me about. I get all these kind of questions that, do you guys have pizza in Iraq? I mean, first we do have pizza in Iraq, but second, like, why is that important to know if you have pizza in Iraq? But they should think of Iraq like any other. I think people should not only change their mentalities about Iraq, they should change their mentalities about the world in general, because all countries have pizza now. They're international. All countries have internet. All countries have television. It's international. It's not Iraq or Syria or Pakistan or all these countries. So I think they should start to be just more open-minded and and Baghdad is a city of 8 million people, so it's a huge city. So they definitely have cars um, and TV and all of that. So um, we're not a developed country, but we're hopefully heading there. And we have all the gadgets that I personally I don't like, but all the technology that I don't like, and I wish we didn't have them. Would be nicer, but and in fact, like a lot of people ask me if I ride camels to home, and I mean to school when I was home. And the funny thing is, the first time seeing a camel was in Colorado. I was in Colorado on a trip, and I saw a camel, and that was my first time seeing a camel in my life. So I should go to the people in Colorado and ask them the same questions. And it's interesting because I've always been a minority. In Iraq, I'm a Christian, and in the U.S., I'm foreigner. I'm a foreigner. I'm from Iraq, and and I get like people asking me like when they know I'm from Iraq, they ask me about the camel, and when they know I live in Montana, they ask me about the horse if I ride horses to school. And I think it's just stuck with my background. I'm always gonna be asked these stereotypes and questions.
Well, I'm afraid that's something that we'll always have to deal with.
Yeah,
Stereotyping.
it becomes funny after a while when people
Yeah.
ask it. Like I think the first few times I got irritated. Now I think it's funny because you're just used to it. You're just used to it eventually.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about, your views of the politics and your traveling, your experiences with people from all over the world that most of us are never going to experience at all. Where is one of your favorite places in the world to visit? I mean, if
That I've been to or I've never been to.
that you've been to
Um, I would love to go back to the Bay Area.
the Bay Area.
Yeah, like
Oh,
San Francisco, Berkeley, Oakland, in California. It's just I was there this summer for working with this Jewish organization and working on poetry, and I think it's just one of the most amazing cities and areas in the U.S. But I would love also to go back to Istanbul. Istanbul is a beautiful city where you can find the liberals and the conservatives, the moderate and the foreigners and the Arabs and the Europeans, and everyone is just having fun, smoking hookah, drinking beer. It's just an amazing city. So I would love to go back to Istanbul and San Francisco.
Hmm. And those are cities in their own category. What about scenery wise? You're in Montana. You've been in California. You've been all over. You've various places in Central Asia. Scenic wise, what is your favorite?
It's just everything has its own taste. Like when I went home this summer, even the smell of the air smelled different. The sun looked different. I love the sun in the east. It's
Mhm.
much. I think it's. I love it. I like it more than the sun in the west. When like this, I mean, sunset and sunrise. The sunrise in Iraq, it's beautiful, and I don't think it's a happy sunrise. I think it's a very sad one, but it's a really beautiful and emotional one. So I think when it comes to scenery, I will always enjoy a sunrise in Iraq. But I would love the stars, and I love the stars in Montana because you can, like, if you go to the mountains, and sometimes we go hike in the mountains, and at night when no lights are there, no cell phone, you just see and look at the stars. It's hard to see that in Baghdad with big cities and big buildings. So I think the sky in Montana is beautiful, but the sunrise in Iraq is beautiful too.
Beauty all around the world if we
Yeah,
just open our eyes.
I think that too.
Uh, I'd like you to pull out another poem and read that to us, please.
Yeah. I'm not sure what your audience would love, but I can read a poem that is about Iraq and about the war. But I mean, I just want to point out that my poetry is not only about Iraq and it's not only about the war. Um, you read some of my poetry. You've been to some of my shows, and
Hmm.
I do poetry for about all different topics and all different
Yeah. So
ideas.
give us a sampling.
Yeah. I will definitely
We
do.
want to sell your book.
I want to sell my book for sure. People should. I always tell people that this book is bad writing, but they should read it. I don't think it's bad writing. It's just a joke that I
Uh,
always tell people.
well, I don't think it's bad. I've read some of your poetry. I've heard you read it, and it has impressed me.
Thank you. Well, I will read this one, and it has some theme of the war, but it's not all about the war. It's just about life, I think, in general. Um, and I dedicated this one to angelic wars and regular days, and it goes like this: sadness, a cartridge in the pyramid's brain. God has given up water and existence. He's left us to run away, along with the reality of stupid novels. He's led us to get lost in the public list of names. We've drilled our brains with a cigarette. We've hardly penetrated our wives. And the pain is endless. And the howling of the naked ones is endless. We've demolished our high towers. We've washed our bodies with nuclear bombs, shaved our heads, and kept waiting. And I think this poem is it's the reality of a lot of lives, and it's the reality of a lot of people that if you live in a place like Montana where everything is kind of secured and safe and nice, you don't think about people like that. And through this poem and through a lot of my poems, I'm trying to, even though they're sad and they're abstract, but a lot of people's lives are sad and abstract in a way, and this is what I'm trying to get into my poetry.
Yeah. Well, I think you're doing a good job, and from the looks of things, I think a lot of people do like your work.
Thank you.
So your next travels are going to be to Oklahoma.
Yeah, we're trying to get a reading in Oklahoma, and then I'm gonna relax in Austin for a weekend with no poetry. But after that, we're gonna work on the book and publish it hopefully in December. And through the next year, beginning of next year, and maybe December, we're gonna have readings in Montana for sure, and Great Falls, Missoula, and other cities that my publisher knows about. I'm not sure what they are, but then we're gonna go to Spokane, go to Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, um, hopefully New York, and DC area to do readings there. So we're basically gonna be all around, and we're also exploring different kind of readings that are online readings. So we have projectors in schools and universities around the U.S. and where they put me via Skype, they put me on a screen, and we can do a reading and a question setting after the reading. And I've done that in Pennsylvania and places like that. So we're gonna do that too. And through that time, we're gonna trying to promote and sell the book.
Okay. So once again, we've been talking to Saif Alsaegh, and your website again is
My blog is Saif Alsaegh, and I'm gonna spell it out because it's hard. It's SAIFALSAEGH .blogspot.com, and through that you can find a lot of my poetry and a lot of information about the book. Or you can go directly to indiegogo.com and type in Iraqi Headaches by Saif Alsaegh, and you can pre-order, donate, and share the book. We have a promo video that would tell you more about the book, more details, and why I'm writing this book. So yeah, we're excited. Me and the company that I mean, the small press that I'm publishing through is called Novelva Nostalgia. It's managed by Tyson Habine and Sarah Habine, and together we're working to get this book, hopefully, to all parts of the U.S. and maybe the world. Let's see how it goes.
well, Saif. You're going to go far.
Hopefully,
Wait a second. You already have.
I'm already far. Should go back.
No. We'll share you with the rest of the world. But we thank you very much for coming to the studio.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's great.
Enjoyed talking to you, and for a young man, you have some pretty mature world views.
Appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me. It's been great, and I would love to come back and perform more poetry. And that's what people speak. Eventually, they speak poetry and music, and that's what makes the world a better place.
Well, I think every government cabinet should include a poet.
Yeah, that would be much better. That would, yeah, they would probably reopen the government because of that.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We've been talking to Saif Alsaegh. He is a student at UGF, a poet, and I'd say a philosopher as well. So go to his website and get to know him a little better. Check out his book. It'll be coming out in December, and we'll probably have you come back shortly before that does come out and give another plug nickel for it.
Yeah, hopefully. Thank you guys.
All right. Thank you very much. This is Mark Matheson for Voices and Views. Have a good day.